One of the problems we've seen is just this idea of the fact that there's been a decrease in the number of black and Latino educators across the system. Whether we look at teachers, whether we look at administrators, we're seeing that there are decreases in these particular numbers.
I remember when we had our hearings, we had a task force, as you may know, on mayoral control. We had hearings at Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and in those hearings, I remember when Sam Anderson, on behalf of the organization, made a report that sort of laid out clearly the numbers of black, Latino teachers, educators disappearing in the system. So that's documented, yes.
To piggyback on that, also the reduction of black and minority contracts, that, as we were talking about with contracts, because who hires who? And you have women contracts that have been reduced or tweaked to make sure that the people cannot apply for those contracts. Has that been looked at?
Well, I know that the city council has been very much concerned about that, and that has been looked at again. And these are some of the reasons why the questions you ask are the reasons why mayoral control is a slippery slope backwards, because it tends to hide and ignore and in many instances aggravate the kinds of opportunities that we would like to see, particularly in terms of minority women and black businesses. And in the meantime, favoritism is what comes into play. The old boys network is what returns, to say the least, and it can get even worse.
Well, I know that there are numbers of people in the city who are at this particular point are very concerned about this issue. What can they do at this particular point? We understand that some people in the Senate have attempted to try to broker a deal to give Mayor Bloomberg back mayoral control. In the meantime, there's increasing pressure, increasing organizing going on in communities by people who oppose this. What can listeners, just the audience and concerned citizens at this particular point, do to have their voice heard?
Well, everyone out there has a state senator. I'm sure if they live in the New York City area, whether or not they voted for that senator, whether or not they believe in the process of elections per se, I would urge them to contact their state senator and express to them how they should not vote for the continuation of mayoral control. Now, there are many of us who believe that this process is effective, and I would say to people that it is very, very important that they let their senators know how you feel, and they're easy to find. If you don't know how to reach them, you can just Google or call. You can call my office at 212-222-7315, and I can let you know based on the area where you live. But even if you don't live in the city or in an area where you would have a state senator, like in another state, just let your voice be heard anyway in terms of how you feel about mayoral control, and of course reaching out to the Governor Patterson, who ultimately has to sign the bill one way or the other. Let him know about your opposition to mayoral control, and then of course, while you can always get in touch with the mayor and say if mayoral control continues, you won't vote for his reelection. You might not vote for it anyway, but especially if mayoral control is pursued by him, that it would be a problem. You just have to you have a very sophisticated audience, one of the most sophisticated in the listening radio world, and I'm sure they know how to mobilize and let their voices be heard in all the ways that they have done it in other movements or other causes. There's no cause greater than this as far as that's concerned.
Okay, well, we'd like to thank you for taking some time out to be with us this evening, and we definitely want to stay in touch and continue this discussion because it's critically important, and unfortunately, we're not getting this kind of discussion in the media. It's not really taking place, with the exception of WBAI, and we understand Gary Bird, both here and at some of the other stations he's working at, has been on this particular question. But in the corporate media, in the regular media that most people get their information, this discussion is not taking place at all.
You're right, and it's unfortunate because while people may think it's irrelevant because it's about education or because it's not about an area of their interest, either because it's not their children at stake or they're interested in another area. The fact of the matter is, what happens to our public schools is a sign of what will be happening in our government all the way around. If we allow unchecked control over the educational arena, the most important arena, then you will see a similar kind of dictatorial control creeping into other areas of our governing, whether on the city level, the state level, or the federal. I think this is a very dangerous, slippery slope taking us backwards, away from a more open and democratic way of governing to a more closed old boy network type of governing at the expense of the citizens and especially at the expense of the future educational opportunities for our children.
Mm-hmm.